Some of you guys are overcomplicating everything. Look, all you need is a little God, grit, and a ham sandwich. All right, holla holla.
Hey, HP.
Beat you to it.
HP in the house.
In the hizzy.
Yeah?
Yep.
So, you are trying to match me again.
Nope. I was dressed first.
Oh, dang it. I think that's true. Why? You influence me so much.
What are we talking about?
Well, I think
What's on your mind?
we were discussing how simple success can be, really, in comparison to what people think it has to be. Sure, does it take a lot of hard work? Absolutely. But we always say that there's a difference between easy and simple, right? Becoming successful and achieving any goal that you have is not easy, but the process can be simple.
Yeah.
So
No, I think what sparked it was I had just come off of an event and we got a training tonight and we find ourselves ad nausea talking about the same things over and over again because it really is the simple things. Right.
There's a foundation.
Right.
And if you know it, that you're following the correct path, if there's simple foundational truths, actions, things that can be duplicated to scale and create success in any area of life.
Yes. Sorry,
Yeah.
Squirrel. Oh,
I know.
like squirrel.
You with me? You with me here on?
I'm there. We used to always say, because there's so many ways to be successful, in particular to what we do, but in general, there's those fundamental foundational things. And I think once you do those things and you just do them well and you learn to do them well and with consistency, the sky's really the limit. So we always joke, and I'd always say, look, and it's really not a joke, because as we get into these three topics, I'd always say, look, man, there's nothing sexy about how we did it or what we did. It literally was God, grit, and a ham sandwich.
Yep.
It was those three things, right? And people's always like, what did he just say? Or what is that? And but
what do you mean?
You say it enough to enough people often, and they start to quote it, and they start to realize it and live it as well.
Well, and it's like in our business, we've seen it in our decade plus of being, doing what we do. We've seen really incredible people come in with really incredible skill sets, successful in other areas of life. And then we see them like come into our business thinking they know better, or there must be a different way, right? In doing things. And we see them overcomplicating.
That's a good point.
What could be rather simple, and honestly, overcomplicating, overcreating. And sometimes, honestly, people are just trying to create distractions. I've done them all. We came into the business, thought, great, well, we're entrepreneurs. Let's make a website. Let's get into SEO for this. But trying to skip steps of just doing the simple foundational things that other people had done to become successful, right?
Yeah. The boring stuff builds a business.
Yeah.
It's literally the boring stuff that builds the business. It doesn't have to be boring, but on the surface, it looks boring. And it's kind of like, I got to show up and do that. Well, how you do it can change the energy of that. It doesn't have to be boring, but on the surface, it looks like it's the boring stuff, but that's what builds businesses. And oftentimes, I think that's why, there's pros to masterminds, and they were discussing that earlier. There's pros to masterminds, there's pros to buying courses, and there are pros to, but oftentimes people are looking for that secret sauce to skip steps. And if you're going to buy the course or you're going to the mastermind to skip a step, instead of just doing the work and the simple things, you're going to constantly be chasing that secret sauce for the rest of your life, right?
And you just bring to mind, it's like,
go to the mastermind, but take the information and actually go apply it.
It's a pet peeve of mine when people try to come into our industry and they say, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. I'm like, good luck, because you're going to have to do both. Honestly, in any industry where you have to learn how to work smart and hard, which generates momentum, success, results, wisdom, credibility, all the other things that you need to be able to flip it to say, yes, there's a season where you get to work smart, not necessarily just harder, right?
Yeah.
But people are trying to skip because of some, wisdom that passes around that they're not grown into yet. They try to skip the season of smarter and harder.
Mm-hmm.
And what smarter means doesn't necessarily mean skipping steps or trying to find a different, better way. It means to work smarter with your talents that you have, with the time that you have.
Yeah.
Time to grow into the skills that you need. Like, it's just, there's a huge misconception about how to apply that to real world success.
Yeah.
As with a lot of things, right?
Yeah. So we're going to try and make this a shorter podcast. So we're going to kind of dive right on in. So my favorite quote is is it Socrates or no, who is it? It's Aristotle. Who says that quote? It's funny that I always get mixed up on what philosopher, but it's simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Yeah. And I always try and sum things up because I'm just a simple man. So it's like I need things to be simple, and then I can dive in and go kill it, crush it, do whatever I got to do to it. And I think a lot of people actually are the same way. They overcomplicate things sometimes intentionally to justify why they can't do it, but they were trying, but it was too hard. So I'm going to simple that shit down. So kind of the way we frame it up is I always would say, look, the way we did things, the way we do things, nothing sexy about it. We did it with God, grit, and a ham sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just a saying. Like if you get to each little detail, it's kind of what we did. It's kind of
an element, yeah.
So if you want
each of its own.
We'll break it down. On the surface, what we did, I'll say this and then we'll break it down. On the surface, there was God. We had faith. We'd actually, for our date nights, we'd go to Bible studies. We'd have community. Then we'd go to Subway. We literally did get a Subway sandwich. And we'd go to the lakefront for a cheap date. And then we would basically, our work ethic was, we were very gritty. And like we would just take the steps and do the work. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
Nothing flashy about it.
Yeah. And for me, the God element was, like you said, faith. And I had to have complete and total faith that if I did the work that was in front of me every season, every day, every month, with consistency, what I was continuing to hear and see of people that had the success that I wanted, if I did those things and then looked for the and then some within the scope of those skills and actions, not outside of the scope, until I perfected and grew upon those, that over time we were going to get to where we need to be, and that we were in the right place. We were led to the business that we were led to. We were put in positions that we were put into because we needed to have some things pruned away. We need to have our small business pruned away. It was good for a season, but it wasn't meant to be our long-term gig. And, so not just that we were where we needed to be, that everything else that had happened to us was also leading us to that very moment to be the people we needed to be, to grow into who we were going to become too, and that it all centers around our family, again, for us, biggest motivators,
Right. And, for the God perspective, like regardless of what your what you follow, what you believe, don't overlook this step because you don't have to align with our beliefs or that. Well, basically what it boils down to is faith over fear. Mm-hmm. As I was sharing earlier, it's like they're both figments of imagination. Like they're not tangible, right? They really aren't tangible. Like they're in your imagination, and fear, to be led by or operate from a place of fear is just undirected, misguided imagination. Mm-hmm. Whereas faith, and it's going to show up, like it's going to bear the fruits of operating from that space. Whereas faith is going to be coming from a place of more abundance and certainty. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a much more powerful and much more attractive place. And you're going to have much more energy too in operating from that space. So that's kind of where we were. It was kind of like we were broken, we were broke, we were wherever we were. And it was kind of like, well, operating from fear ain't getting it done. Like that got us where we are, and it's making it worse and it's smothering it. So we just kind of leaned into, you know what? We looked at people who were successful and I was kind of like, look, if they can do it, we can do it, right? Or we looked at just our situation and we're like, man, we can rise above this. I'm certain we can if we do these steps, if we do these fundamental things. If I read the book and actually apply the things, I have faith that we can It's almost certain over time. I don't know when, I don't know how long, but it'll manifest. Right. So that was kind of the God part of it in just a short sequence.
Yeah. And it was actually in that season that both of our faith and our spirituality and our connection with God grew. Like you grew spiritually, I grew spiritually in a season where we were working our tails off and even losing things. Like as we were cultivating a whole new beginning to our life and a whole different kind of life, there was other things, people, businesses, all kinds of things that were falling away, So it wasn't all roses either, but it was one of the seasons we've worked the hardest in our life, that we've had some of the hardest things happen to us, that we also felt the most peace. We talk about this a lot. We're like, man, we were so genuinely happy. And that's what faith does. Faith brings this ultimate peace over your life and certainty. Like you said, that you are on the right path.
Yeah. Certainty paired with a compelling future gets you up out of bed with excitement to act. So that's the God part of it. Second part is jokingly a ham sandwich because it was actually. No,
it's grit. God grit.
Okay. God. Okay. So we switched to grit.
You got to go in order.
All right. We'll go with grit.
Grit. We'll go with the ham sandwich if you want.
No,
you're throwing me off.
Go with grit.
Well, grit, because people think you're just going to wake up when you have that ultimate peace or the ultimate certainty and you're moving forward in faith, not fear, that you're just going to somehow wake up and, the obstacles aren't going to be there or somehow things are going to actually feel easy. And that's just not the case, in the season where we had so much peace and so much happiness, there was also evenings where I was like, of course I was pregnant. Imagine that, there's the grit too. I've been in this business and I've literally 4 of our 5 kids have been born into us being coaches, at different success levels. But there was an evening where I was just tired. I was very pregnant, very tired. And I remember just leaning over on the counter, like with one hand and the other hand on my belly and just crying a little bit, And it wasn't because I doubted the path that we were on. It wasn't because I didn't want to do the work. It was just because I'm a human being and I was working hard for something that really mattered to me. And on that day, I was very fatigued, not even defeated. I couldn't even tell you anything bad happened, But that's at the point in which you have to dig deep. You have to dig deep and have this tenacity about you and this resolve that you are tough. You can do hard things. This is worth it. And in knowing too, like there's days where you wake up knowing you have to do something you don't know how to do. To put yourself in a place where you have to master a skill you're also learning simultaneously, that takes grit.
Yeah.
That takes a special kind of person to dig deep and to believe and trust that they can become every bit of who they're supposed to become.
What I like about the grit part is that anybody can do it. So that's what's appealing to me. And that's what gave hope and kind of drove from there. But I remember mentors of us early on when we started accelerating in growth and kind of showing up on the scene and we were kind of, moving. And I remember and said, man, I remember someone asking, so what's their strength? Like, what's their thing? And I remember her just kind of pausing. I was like, damn, she paused an awful long time to come up.
You had to think about this really hard.
What my attributes are here. And she goes, they just gritty. Yeah. Y'all are just gritty. And I was like, well, there's one of them backhand compliments. But no, it's it gave me hope to say, you know what? Especially in our line of business, it was like, you just have to have the basic, simple fundamentals. And then if you can grind it out and do things when you don't feel like doing it, and you create that habit of consistency of doing it, even when you don't feel like doing it, man, you too can create whatever you want to create. So to me, grit was actually a compliment and that anyone can do it. So I was like, well, that's attractive.
Yeah.
If I can just have people believe. believe that they can do that too. So
yeah, and the interesting thing about grit, and I love this book, the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, is so interesting because there's studies that show that there are some people who are actually born just a little more naturally gritty than yeah. However, grit can be cultivated, and one of the things that it can be cultivated through is through consistency, discipline. Some people think discipline is you're just born disciplined. That's discipline can be cultivated too, through cultivating a true belief, educating yourself, and then setting up, all the things that you would research if you're like, how do you when you set a goal, how to achieve it? It's going to be all those things. That's grit.
Yeah.
The kind of people that set a goal and achieve a goal are gritty people. And you can cultivate that kind of grit through integrity, is the meaning of integrity, is basically just doing what you say you're going to do.
It's interesting because even to this day, 10 plus years in what we've done and what we've created, the size of business and impact. And sometimes we still look at each other and be like, what exactly do we do and how did we do it? And it does always fall on these three things. So that's why I thought it was, important to speak about. Yeah. So the last thing to go in sequence.
Thank you. My brain needs that.
Is ham sandwich. But see, what the ham sandwich represented was that simplicity also, because it was a time the ham sandwich represented us leaning out in our finances. So we didn't have distractions or urgency when we were building this. See, some of you want
not creating extra pain that you don't
want to
need.
put the cart before the horse, and you can't delay gratification, and you're too busy trying to keep up with the Joneses, Kardashian, I don't know, whatever the saying is these days. You can't just humble yourself to delay that. But we did. And we were making more than enough money to not just have one car, but we shared a car actually that we still have today because it represents that part of our life was one reason. But we shared that car up until we were making a lot of income, like more income in a month than most people make in a year, but we still were sharing that vehicle, right? That was part of our date night, was going to Subway and getting that sandwich. That was part of, us cutting our cable bill. Just, it was represented leaning out is what the ham sandwich represented, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. I think that, and for me in my brain too, is like, it
was us sharing hotel rooms with people.
Yeah.
Remember?
When we didn't want to.
Practical strangers, but it cut the bill in half.
Some people really enjoy that. And I would say, that's cool.
Yeah, I hated it.
There's the girls' nights and those are so fun. No. But to be a married couple sharing a hotel room with someone else.
Yeah. Negative.
It was not fun. No. You're cool people. We don't regret having that extra time, but sharing a bathroom and stuff, but that should be structural tension to be like, we both needed that, both parties, we needed it as a couple, they needed it because financially that's the way it needed to be. And we were able to invest in other people and get them to events that would help them achieve their goals. But also next time we come back, we're going to be making enough money to not have to share a room. Exactly. And so are you, right? But for me, the ham sandwich represented also in my mind what I would always think about, because it's such a great visual of simplicity, and also the layering, just a continued layer of doing the things that work, simple systems over and over, investing in people. What are the layers to build a very strong business that is also fulfilling, not just financially or in the other things that you're creating for yourself, but is truly, impactful to you and other people, is, community, it's skill sets, community, building other people up. And I just kind of would always kind of picture that. And it was my reminder every time, because I'm no different than anyone else. I want to distract myself and tell myself hey, can't you just go put some money behind some ads or something, and, I've thought all the things that other people thought, if we had this, it would be better, or we'd be able to do this better if we had this thing, or if I was like so-and-so. And ultimately it was just no, here it is. There's the bread, there's the ham. I guess if you want tomato and lettuce on it, you got it. and then you've got another piece of bread. Keep it simple.
100%. Keep it simple. That's what it represented for me too.
Yeah.
It was, people were flashy. Some people were whatever. We were pretty basic, simple, fundamentals, grit it out, do it consistently, and a little bit of faith sprinkled on top.
Yep. So God, grit, and a ham sandwich. That's what it took. All right, friends, that's a wrap. And remember, you deserve to live the life you desire. So go out and create your new American dream.